Well folks, how's it going? Now I'm trying something new. This camera it's a bit of state-of-the-art equipment that Justin has set up for me. Yes, we'll try it and see how it pans out. But see, it follows me about and all. So it does. Yes. I don't understand this stuff. Justin loves all this. He loves it. But he's all, oh, this microphone connects to this, and this does this, and this does that, and blah blah blah, and it just, oh. Anyway, my wee brain goes. If you haven't figured out who Justin is, he's my partner on Irish Whiskey Review every Saturday night. Hi, so we're going transatlantic this evening. We are going not to the US. No, because just north of the US is another whiskey region. This is Canada. And sometimes Canadian whiskey gets a little bit of a bad rap. It has lots of fans. I mean, some of it sells big numbers. But some people aren't that terribly struck on some of it. And Canadian whiskey has a little bit of a strange thing because it can put in flavouring in it as well. There's a caveat that they can put in flavouring. Yeah, this was awarded the Canadian Whisky Association, Whisky Society, I can't remember. One of the Canadian organisations awarded this their Whisky of the Year. Okay, so hopefully that's coming in on that. This is Pike Creek, finished in Oloroso sherry casks, 21-year-old, age statement 21-year-old, Oloroso finished sherry cask. Now, Canadian whiskey is known for rye. This doesn't have a huge amount of detail on it, which is a bit, we all know we like a bit more detail so we know what we're drinking. There is only 4,410 bottles of it. And this is part of the Hiram Walker. So it's part of a big organisation. So I'll just read this off. The 21-year-old select oak aged Canadian whisky finished in Oloroso sherry cask for a complex and luxurious experience. This whisky brings together Pike Creek's signature smooth style, with hints of vanilla and dried fruits and spices drawn from the Oloroso sherry casks. That's basically it. There's not a big lot more information on this. So now it's bottled at 45%. It's a bit of a letdown. But this is fairly highly regarded stuff. Now, straight away, it's got quite a nose on it. I can as soon as it's poured out the glass, I can pick up on this. Now, if this recording goes a little bit funny, do not panic, because I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I'm just sort of winging it and see if this works. It's a wee tiny camera that moves and stuff. It tracks your face, so the Chinese government must have one of these, probably I would have thought. Now, doesn't tell you whether there's any colouring in this. I'm gonna say there probably is a little bit. Well, no, it's a bit of a strange colour for an Oloroso, but it's only finished, so it might just finishing. There's no definition for finishing. You can basically put it in for a very quick period of time. There's not really any hard and fast definition, so therefore you can age something in bourbon casks for 20 years. Finish it in an Oloroso cask for a month or a year, 6 months, whatever, and you can get that legal definition. So yeah, there's not really hard and fast rules about finishing. There's all these different terms, marrying and so on, marrying and then finishing, and so, you know, where you take these and these different casks, then are finished in your sherry butts. And, you know, there's nearly 4,500 bottles of this, so there's quite a number of casks. So if it was aged in bourbon much smaller cask. They must have filled up the sherry casks out of bourbon casks, so unless you're getting the sort of DNA of what's in the glass, it's kind of hard to know. But I'm going to say it's not aged that long in an Oloroso sherry cask, because it kind of looks like it's got colouring in it, and sherry casks, Oloroso, lends a lot of colour. So it's a bit strange, you know, a bit strange. But they give you a clear bottle, so you can have a look at it yourself. It seems a lot clearer in the glass. Maybe it's just my eyes. My eyes are starting to go big time. Yeah, not huge legs to this, which sort of tells me it's a little bit thin. I'm going to expect it to be a little bit thin in the body, so the mouthfeel might not be fabulous. But on the nose, that's really quite pleasant actually. It's got a slight. It's quite zesty, quite orange rind, orange pith, orangey, a little bit of spice orange, orange oil, fragrance, flavour. It's that kind of orange notes. There's a few different sort of orange notes, different sort of the textures. It takes on the same note, really. Yeah, definitely orange. It's quite fresh in many ways, but with a sort of sugary background coming in the background, obviously coming from the Oloroso. But on the nose, it's not that spicy. It's not. It's zesty, not spicy. It's got apple notes, sort of fresh estery notes, which is not really what I was expecting from this. Although I do think it is quite thin, but so that maybe would be enlightening it a little bit and pulling it up. Yeah, so it's quite citrusy. It's sort of dampened a little bit. I probably could do with an extra 10 minutes in the glass before I give it a huge, a definite verdict on that. But it's quite orangey, and the zestiness is sort of dissipating a little bit. So the bit more of the sugary sweetness is coming up there. Not overpowering in that nose, if you like. It's not. It's probably a bit more of your. Let me think. Like your caramel toffees. Well, more sort of a toffee than toffee fudge in there, rather than necessarily caramel. Caramel's maybe a bit too sweet for it on the nose. But it's sort of hinting at the orange zesty coming down to more of an orange flesh. So it's sort of dropped a little bit in the initial hit. And a little bit more of the toffee. If you know what tablet is in Scotland, it doesn't have a huge smell. It kind of has more of a suggestion of a smell. And that's kind of what you're getting here. Yeah, quite fresh, quite fresh. Certainly for a 21-year-old whiskey, it's quite fresh. So we'll go for a little bit of a taste. Going to say the mouthfeel is not great. Kind of was expecting that. I wasn't surprised. It doesn't have that luxurious feel. It's not unpleasant, to be honest. I wouldn't rave about this. It won a whiskey, Canadian Whiskey of the Year. I'm going to say if this is the best Canada can do in 21 years, there's a little bit more to go. It's not unpleasant by any stretch of the imagination, but it has a little bit less body to it, which is disappointing. I like those sort of thick, viscousy, heavy-bodied whiskies. The notes that it's coming out with is quite good. There's a little bit of heat there, so it's quite peppery, spicy, cinnamon, a little bit more. How would you put it? Spicy, cinnamon, but done into a gummy bear type note. So it's held in and given without being overpowering. It's getting a fairly pleasant palate to it. Finishes quite well. For something being quite thin in the body, it finishes quite well and has an element of development. It's moving over a little bit more of the wood coming through. Some of the wood actually, it's probably pushing out some of the more pleasant notes you get on the palate, and the wood's becoming a bit more dominant, which is, again, it's not necessarily what I would like, particularly in a whiskey. I would much prefer my whiskies to have the fruity elements to it, not overly sweet. This isn't overly sweet, which is nice. Again, sherry sometimes, when people talk about sherry bombs, sherry's sherry, but it can be a little bit sweet at times. But this Oloroso tends not to do that. It tends obviously to have much more rounded, nutty fruit notes. But the wood element of this is starting to push over out all the fruit, which is not necessarily where I'd like it to be. It's kind of reminiscent of another spirit. It's not. It's got sort of brandy notes to it. So that sort of wine element, sort of almost brandy-esque in some ways, which it's not what you want in a whiskey. It's pleasant without being superb. Now, Pike Creek is fairly accessible here in the UK. This one I'm not. You don't have to look too hard to pick these up. Even lots of the supermarkets and stuff are stocked in Pike Creek. Normally the 10-year-old you'll find. This is okay. I wouldn't rant and rave about it if I'm honest, but that's not the worst thing in the world. You can obviously take these things and run with them yourselves, but it is what I would consider on the weaker side. Canadian whiskey is on the up and up, but to be honest, if they put a bit more emphasis on their rye whiskies and push those out a little bit more, and really establish that market for themselves. This I wouldn't go mad for. Some people obviously are big fans of this. Wouldn't be my cup of tea. It lacks with enough body, doesn't really have enough flavour, there's elements that are dominating bits that really should come up forward. So this has been pushing down on this. It's doing this. It's not really as balanced as what I would like. Nose, quite fresh. Palate, to be fair, the palate, it's not overly sweet. Nice little cinnamon notes to it. A little bit brandy-esque, which is not what you're looking. And the finish is long, but it doesn't develop a huge amount. Giving it a mark, it's not that expensive for a 21-year-old whiskey, but then again, it doesn't necessarily feel 21-year-old. So if I was going to give this a mark, we'll give it a 6 out of 10. Some people obviously rant and rave about it. Not really for me, but give them a try. That's what it's all about. You try them and see whether you like them or not. But if I was going to buy a 21-year-old whiskey, Oloroso cask finish, this wouldn't be the one I would buy. There you go. So, take care of yourselves, you crazy kids, and I will hopefully see you on Saturday nights with me and my mate Justin doing Irish Whiskey Review. That's all from me, Marty McCauley. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.